March 5th, 2020. It was literally the day the world shut down, and also happened to be the day of the grand opening for the Hope Biosciences Stem Cell Research Foundation. I remember the day like it was yesterday. We were so excited to get going on our research. But then COVID happened.
A SARS-like virus, which has infected hundreds in China, has now reached the United States.
With health officials here in the U.S. moving fast to prepare for what the CDC has called an inevitable spread.
I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
More of the country is closing down tonight, trying to contain the coronavirus pandemic.
We start thinking about how do we make ourselves useful in this pandemic that we're in. And so that's why we began pretty much the largest stem cell program for COVID in the United States. By the time we started the trial, Houston was in its peak. We were doing our trial at the United Memorial Medical Center, which is now known as the sort of the epicenter of COVID in Houston. So while treating COVID at the hospital, there were a whole series of challenges. Think about the challenges of running a trial in an environment like that. It's just total chaos. At some point during the middle of the trial, we had reported that we had lost 10 people in the trial. And so naturally, FDA puts the trial on hold, saying they need to investigate. Now, at this point, we had treated a little over 50 people. We like to think that we saved 40 people's lives, but those that were really destined to go downhill fast, there was really nothing that we could do to help. Perhaps stem cells are not a treatment to rescue someone who's going downhill really rapidly from COVID. We started looking at this phenomenon that we started hearing about, which were people who had COVID but were still suffering from symptoms of COVID long after the infection was over. So they were no longer tested positive for COVID, but they still had these unusual COVID symptoms.
In our health lead, for some people diagnosed with coronavirus, symptoms can linger for months and months.
That the coronavirus may in fact lead to long-term heart complications at least 1 year out from the initial infection.
People continue to have long-term symptoms or develop new symptoms that are related to their initial infection.
Tasks as simple as walking up a flight of stairs remain a struggle. The great worry for scientists is that these so-called COVID long-haul victims might even bear the scars of the pandemic for the rest of their lives.
We called this post-COVID-19 syndrome. This is sort of before the term long haulers was coined. There were doctors' valiant efforts of essentially throwing the kitchen sink at this virus, trying to stop it. I think we need some intro music to Dr. Varone here. This is a good time to have it.
Dr. Joseph Varone, Chief Medical Officer of United Memorial Medical Center, says it's like he's fighting a war on two fronts.
A war against COVID and a war against stupidity.
They call me a COVIDologist, COVID hunter. Look at my back. I am running on adrenaline. It's basically adrenaline what you see on me. We're going now into the COVID unit. There are only two kinds of people in Houston. Those who have COVID and those who are going to get COVID. Every time one of the patients leaves the intensive care unit, we give them a diploma that says that they made it out of this place in one piece. Long COVID is a syndrome that has been seen in patients that have COVID at some point in time and develop a variety of different manifestations, and literally can affect every system of your body. From simple things like a brain fog, I'm not remembering things simple, all the way up to being short of breath, having tachycardias. It can affect every symptom. I have seen every possible neurological, cardiological, gastroenterological manifestation that you can imagine. That means of every system. The problem is it's a condition that it continues to stay with you, and it doesn't go away.
If we knew that we observed efficacy in the patients that had active COVID in the hospitalized cases that we were dealing with, then we knew that as long as we had some time, that we actually had a chance, a really good chance to make them better.
Tonight, we're looking at a brand new way to treat people who are suffering from COVID's lingering effects.
Yes, this treatment was developed by a laboratory in Sugar Land. Our Keith Garvin live there tonight with how this treatment works.
Dominique, Chris, it is a treatment that is headed to its next trial stage. We are outside Hope Biosciences, and they're looking to treat so-called COVID-19 long haulers. Inside this nitrogen tank could soon be one of the keys to helping COVID-19 long haulers. Those are patients who are no longer infected with coronavirus, but suffer the harsh symptoms sometimes for months after.
There are many people in our community that are suffering.
Hope Biosciences in Sugar Land just received FDA approval for the nation's first small pilot trial to treat long haulers with adult stem cells.
For those of us that are long-haul COVID patients, you know, the virus replicated out of control long ago, and now we're just living this sort of post-viral syndrome loop where we just loop over and over and over into the same symptoms.
I wasn't able to breathe properly. I wasn't able to expand my lungs properly.
And my lungs felt heavy in my body.
I had very labored breathing, and my lung function just never really fully recovered.
And I started feeling feverish again.
I was spiking a temperature every single night.
I would just be sweating profusely.
Body aches came back.
My body was aching.
I started noticing I was developing neuropathy on my left foot.
I still have, pins and needles, like neuropathy.
And he said that the virus had triggered dysautonomia.
A neutrally mediated hypotension, which is a form of dysautonomia.
Headache, severe headache.
Really bad headaches.
A severe headache.
Kind of get headaches or just kind of lost focus.
Extreme brain fog.
The brain fog.
I wasn't able to complete really any tasks.
The fatigue.
Feeling like very tired all the time.
I was really fatigued.
And then I forgot to mention the anxiety and depression that's a part of this.
Being down all the time.
Depressed, hopeless.
It was kind of scary. It caused me a lot of anxiety.
I wasn't able to smile like I used to smile.
I mean, these patients, the stories that we heard were patients had COVID and were not getting over it. I mean, 6 months, 12 months later. We decided to focus on this population and devise a protocol. After screening, patients would receive 5 intravenous infusions. The process really begins with a very small extraction of fat. We take a tablespoon of fat to be able to extract the mesenchymal stem cells, which are the particular stem cells that we're studying. In this case, we were going to multiply them at 5 different occasions to deliver 5 separate infusions of 200 million cells. So we would be delivering 1 billion of their own stem cells back into their bodies in hopes to, again, regulate that immune system, perhaps reset it, also work on the various symptoms that they had. Participants in the trial had the privilege to meet and interact with none other than our very own Sherry Deers and David Gonzalez, both extremely experienced registered nurses that have pretty much seen it all.
We were excited to find out that we were going to do a 10-patient expanded access for people with long COVID because there was really nothing there. We were getting call after call. We fielded hundreds of calls from people who were just looking for something, who had heard that stem cells might be a solution, a regenerative treatment might help them get better. And so we were so excited we got to do a 10-patient study. And what we saw was the patients came in, we saw them in our infusion suite. They came in weak and tired.
You know, everybody has a different experience with COVID. But for me and for a subset of people, it just never goes away.
She got sick at a time whenever there was no testing to actually diagnose COVID, but she had all the symptoms of it.
And I have a list of probably 30 symptoms that I experienced. Then it was a head cold, and then it went into bronchitis, and then the coughing stopped, and then my lungs felt. I felt pain all around my body. That's when I went to the emergency room and had a CT scan and was diagnosed with pneumonia. I started having all kinds of weird sort of neurological issues on the left side of my body. My blood pressure dropped to 63/40, and my heart rate would go up into the 140s, 130s, 120s.
It seemed like she was extremely nervous the first time she came in, just because of what she had been through with COVID and the symptoms that she was still experiencing.
No one can explain to me or help me really why it is I cycle through. And I remember one time I had 5 days where I felt well, and my husband and I both celebrated. We thought, okay, I'm well, and then it came back. So I'm hoping that this will give me sort of a reset, and I'm hoping that I will get my health back.
Naomi is a young mother who is active with her kids' school or was active with her kids' school.
But a year ago, I got COVID, and I did not think it would affect me or my husband like it did. The initial 14-day virus was manageable. It kind of felt like the flu, and it wasn't, comfortable, but it was okay. But the 6 months following COVID was pretty awful.
She had been one who ran all the time. She was very athletic, exercised on, I think, a Peloton all the time, and she just couldn't do that stuff anymore.
One of the things I've done my entire life is I've been very active with working out or playing sports when I was younger. So I completely stopped doing that after I got COVID.
It was too much sometimes just trying to keep up with the kids' activities.
Wasn't able to laugh like with my kids like I used to, and I would sit on the couch a lot. And so my kids were having to do things on their own that I would normally do for them.
One thing that stood out with Naomi for me is she told me that she had gotten used to the idea that at the point where she was at, that was her new normal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad if you think about it, to where you've tried everything, nothing helps, and so you've resolved yourself to thinking this is the way I'm going to live the rest of my life. Hugh is a realtor, busy all the time, busy with his family, a lot of juggling for sure.
I think I contracted COVID around maybe December 2019. I felt like I was sick for a month, it seemed, and then I got an antibody test, and it confirmed that what I had was COVID.
He was so desperate for help. He had some breathing trouble. His chest hurt all the time. He felt like he couldn't take a deep breath.
My breathing ever since then hasn't been the same, and I've been taking a Singular every day to try to normalize my breathing, which it helps, but I don't want to be dependent on medicine for the rest of my life.
He's still working because he's a young father and he's got to pay the bills, and he is struggling. He can't work.
When you can't breathe, it feels like you're drowning. I don't know how else to explain it, but my main concern was, what if I can't get this medication? What if they stop making it? What if something happens, or that I can't get it? What if it becomes too expensive to the point where I can't get it anymore? That's why I really wanted to see if I could get, fix my lungs. I knew that stem cells could help with that.
Makia is a nurse. She's a nurse at Texas Children's, our local pediatric specialty hospital.
When I got COVID originally, I had just had major surgery.
COVID affected her so severely that she's one of the people who actually had a stroke, and so she's a young woman who couldn't take care of herself anymore.
My initial symptoms lasted probably about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. And then I started feeling better, cough was resolving, everything was like, I felt not 100%, but getting back to normal. Shortly after that feeling, or that period, I had a stroke due to having COVID.
She's living with her mother. She can't work anymore. She'd been hospitalized for a long time. She came home.
And then my mom found out about Hope Bio, and she came and gave me the info and said, call these people, they can help you.
When we're pre-screening her on the phone, David was actually talking to her, and he's like, we have this, she's a nurse. She got COVID, taking care of children with COVID, and she had a stroke.
I am a nurse. I'm a registered nurse, and that's my job. That's what I love to do, is take care of people.
She said, this is what my life is right now. My 70-something-year-old mother is taking care of me. She's supposed to be enjoying retirement the rest of her life, but now she's got to take care of me.
Hopefully, I will get back to work.
Costa, he is a finance, what do you call it, a finance manager or something so, in car dealerships in like the Virginia, Maryland area. And when he was calling for the study, you talk about desperation. Costa had tried everything, bought everything, gone everywhere, gone to Florida, gone to California, been in touch with them. People from California were calling me asking about stuff that he had called them to see if there was anything they could do. When there was no place open in the study, he tried to find a doctor who would do a single patient expanded access study just for him, because he knew stem cells were going to help, but that was the only thing.
Initially, when I first got COVID, I was definitely scared as to what was going to be upcoming, as far as the symptom and my trajectory.
Costa had, I think, every symptom that you could probably have.
He had been hospitalized, and he was so sick when he was hospitalized and so afraid that he was going to die in the hospital. And you remember, nobody could visit, no one could go in. And he stayed on FaceTime with his phone plugged in with his mom because he was so afraid he was not going to make it.
I started coughing slightly, and that cough just started to steadily increase. And then I eventually got a fever, and I lost my taste and smell. Then I started having a lot of difficulty breathing and sleeping. I couldn't sleep as my fever continued to increase. Then I really started having very difficulty just walking around and being able to just do something so simple, just put a plate of food together or grab a drink of water or anything. I would just start getting very, very fatigued and feeling like I was going to pass out. So at that point, I went to the hospital. Then I got admitted to the hospital after about 6 days of battling COVID. And then I was put on oxygen, which started to slowly increase because my fever wasn't dissipating. I was put on that machine for about 4 days, and then they were giving me therapeutics like hydroxychloroquine. I was then treated with remdesivir, then also dexamethasone, and then they ended up giving me convalescent plasma, which was someone else's plasma, and they're antibodies that basically saved my life. So my vitals started to normalize, and then I was able to get off the oxygen and get discharged. But then after I got discharged, that's when all the symptoms started to set in.
He still, when we met him, still had shortness of breath, chest pain,
yes,
the tachycardia when he stands up, sometimes just for no reason, fatigue. He was working, but he was really having a hard time.
His blood pressure was out of control.
High,
low, it was just,
He has a friend who's a cardiologist in his area who had done an echo on him and continued to watch him because he was just having a lot of trouble. He was a sick cookie.
But so many doctors have just labeled me as having an anxiety disorder, and not really give me any support, throughout this. And then now, as the information and as the consistency of symptoms that are basically, extremely widespread, it's getting a lot of awareness, and I'm very excited that there's hope. There's hope for a lot of these long haulers, including myself, that they're going to see an end to this. And now I'm here with Hope Biosciences to participate in a trial to kind of help me regain what I lost.
Doctors extract fat cells from a patient's stomach in what they say is a painless procedure. Hope Biosciences then uses a patented media or food source that eventually grows 1 billion of the patient's stem cells that will be injected back into their body. The stem cells then engage particular symptoms to hopefully bring patients much needed relief.
You know, we have amazing clinical staff that meet the patients, really get to know them, really get to understand where their baseline is. We brought in an independent investigator that helps us with a lot of trials, Dr. Chang.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tan Chang. I'm one of the principal investigators at Hope Biosciences Stem Cell Research. I'm a board-certified emergency medicine physician. I like clinical research because it has to do with interacting with patients, and so when I heard you needed a principal investigator, that's why I applied, and I'm glad to be on board. You know, if there's disease, the infection is gone, COVID is gone, but the patient still had all the bad symptoms. They come to us and they said they've been to all these post-COVID clinics, and they weren't getting improvements going to the clinics. I mean, the clinics would just tell them to exercise more, give them some more vitamins, but there wasn't any medication that actually made them improve. I mean, these patients were truly, truly desperate.
I had heard stories here and there of patients really miraculously getting better.
So after the second infusion, they reported improvements, and they report improvements anywhere 50 to 90% better. I mean, they were like saying, oh my gosh, I'm not short of breath anymore. My brain fog is much better. I can think more clearly.
I remember infusion 3. She came in, she said she felt better, she had more energy, she looked better. We could tell by looking at her that she was improving already.
So it feels great. I'm thrilled because I've got my life back.
I started noticing that her heart rate was better. She was reporting she had more energy. Mm-hmm. She was able to do more things in the house, and she believed she knew she was getting better. She told us she was getting better.
I get to feel like I did before COVID. And I would say to answer the question, what would I say to people who have long COVID? I would actually try to get into a clinical trial and get stem cell treatment, because that has seemed to be the thing that made the difference for me.
Then we had a little cake and the celebration. Yeah. We're starting a whole brand new life. There she is.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Something she didn't even think was possible, and here it was.
Yeah.
By infusion 4, was it 4? Before 5, when he walked in and said, I feel like you took my lungs out and put a new set in.
Now I feel like my joints don't hurt anymore. You know, I have more energy. My lungs feel clearer. Maybe because I'm getting in more oxygen or something. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like I feel better than before I had COVID. Yeah, like it's pretty drastic change.
He's 100%. He'll tell you that. He said he's better than he was before he got COVID. Right. He did so great. Yeah. He was just unbelievable.
So I was taking all my nutrients again. Taking all those nutrients like iron pills, D3, and all that stuff, and it still wasn't really helping. But after stem cells, I mean, I can tell there's a huge difference in my energy levels and my day to day. I mean, it's night and day.
I'm definitely feeling a whole lot better. I feel like I am back to my normal self, but I did not think a year ago that I would be here doing clinical trial to help with the symptoms, but it has been life-changing, and I feel completely back to normal. I feel like myself again. I'm able to do things that I would do before I had COVID. I'm able to be a better mom to my kids because I have more energy. So I've loved it. It's been a great experience. Definitely not one that I would have thought I would ever be in, but it's been great.
You notice a difference from the first visit when we first screened them to when they start feeling better. You can just tell as soon as they walk in the door. And she was one that, by infusion 4. She walks in, she's smiling, she's happy, she looks like she's got more energy.
Skin color, generally look healthier. Yeah. They just look better.
And happy about being able to complete her Peloton routine.
So funny.
There was never a point where I questioned whether or not we should do this. It was a definite, yes, we are going to do this. And I think that it's been a very, very positive experience for me and my husband, who's also doing it.
Last week was the first time in a very long time that I felt just great. I felt energized, and I felt just like my body was finally starting to fully recover.
She's engaged, probably gonna have a wedding soon, and we better be invited.
She is a pistol. Dancing. When she comes in, she's like, I can't even do the moves. She comes in, she's dancing around. She's so happy. She's
so happy.
She got her life back.
So happy.
She got her life back. And we did see her speech is perfect.
Yeah.
The next step on my journey is to work again. I've been updating all of my nursing certifications and currently working on a resume and things of that nature.
And her mom is so happy. It's like, why wouldn't you want to see your child get their life back?
I would say that this experience, I don't want to cry, nope, has been by far the most rewarding and I would say life-changing experience for me. Because not that long ago, I didn't have much hope. I didn't have hope that I would ever feel like myself again. Every day seemed dark. I would say that Hope Bio gave me hope. You guys saved my life, so thank you.
I'm excited for the long-lasting effects that this hopefully brings, and it's been working over the past 3 months that I've been under this trial, and it's been made noticeable differences in myself, in my health, in my ability to complete or get back to a normal way of life. It's given me hope. It's given my family hope. It's really kind of changed my entire direction. It's been I had close to a year of suffering before coming here, and nothing really turned me around. And this for sure, beyond reasonable doubt, has turned me around.
Costa started a whole brand new life for himself.
Yes.
He had a short engagement. He's gotten married. He has his whole future ahead of him. Wanting to figure out how he could get the information out to everybody in the world that there was an answer for long COVID. He just wanted to find some way to get it to everybody.
I'm excited. For the future, and I'm excited this trial has an opportunity to reach all the people that are suffering. And there's I talk to them daily. They're all over Reddit. They're all over many long hauler groups, and it's very sad. So,
as a matter of fact, he got kicked off of is it called Reddit?
Reddit.
He got kicked off of Reddit because they thought he worked for us or something, because he was so positive about he couldn't say enough to the other people who had long COVID. He was like, you need to call these people, you need to do this, and they finally booted him off of Reddit because they thought we must be paying him or something. And it was like, oh my goodness.
He had finally found something that he had no doubt was the answer.
He wanted everyone to know. Yep.
The only thing that really, definitively turned me around was these cells. So my heart rate's no longer, in the 120s and 130s. My shortness of breath, for the most part, has been resolved. Neuropathy symptoms, for the most part, have been resolved. Brain fog, that after infusion 3 has gone away. The ability to sleep throughout the night without a positive airflow from a CPAP machine, that has gone away. Things that you could never imagine in your wildest dreams would change have changed.
By the end of the 4th infusion, most of them were like 90% or more. I mean, we had people who said, I'm complete 100% back to normal. I mean, that is just too great to be just a placebo effect, in my opinion. Post-COVID syndrome trial, it has really excited me because the result is so significant in the post-COVID-1, where I know it's 10 people, they've all gotten the stem cells, but the improvement is so remarkable. I'm just super excited because really there's been no hope for these patients beforehand.
We really got to live out our mission. If our mission was to identify an unmet need and actually fulfill it, through this pilot we really did. And the next step is to test this in a large way, and do it double-blind, placebo-controlled, put all the controls in so that we can really prove out in this second stage how the product actually performs against a placebo. Clinical research takes a long time. I know we have seen some incredible, impossible feats of speed, especially in this COVID era, but we work very quickly in terms of establishing our protocols and getting things approved, but when it comes to actually executing the research, we do take our time and we make sure that everything is correct and everything is, safety is properly established and efficacy, and that we are properly reporting these things. And we hope that the research we do here will help further our industry, help further medicine, so that we have better options, so our kids have better options for the future. That's what we're here to do, and we're going to be here for a long time doing it.